I call upon the spirit of the owl, messenger of wisdom. Welcome to the temple of the owl. Merry meet, seekers of knowledge, for I am Matsao, your host, here at the temple of the owl, located deep in the forests of Northern California. This is where we talk about spiritualism and magic on all levels through the perspective of a modern witch. I want to give you some positivity, shoot some good frequencies your way for everyone that needs it. Some positive vibes out there for you guys. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite books called the Celestine Prophecies. And I'm going to do a book review on the second book, The 10th Insight. And just listening here thank you guys for listening on KUAP Digital Broadcasting. That's the Troubled Minds Radio Network. Thank you everyone out there else out listening. And remember to visit templeoftheowl.com to listen to more. So here today to talk about Celestine Prophecy. And this is part 2. So I suggest if you haven't read the first book or listen to Temple of the Owl Part 1 on this series. So go back and listen to that. This is Part 2. So if you're lost or not understanding, then maybe go back and listen to the other ones. Well, thank you guys for listening. So today we're going to start off with what we call the MOD, or the message of the day. It's a little quote I find that helps me set up the show topic. And since today we're talking about the second book of the Celestine Prophecies by James Redfield, I thought it'd be cool to have a quote from him or from the book. And the quote is, "We must assume every event has significance and contains a message that pertains to our questions, especially if that applies to what we used to call bad things. The challenge is to find the silver lining in every event, no matter how negative." And I like that quote because it really helps talk about that in the book, and thinking about how we always talk about the negative things. It's so easy to focus on the negative things, but when we focus on the positive things, see the silver lining, we can get better. And so I suggest you read the first book, Celestine Prophecies. This is Celestine Prophecies Part 2, it's called The 10th Insight by James Redfield. And today we're opening up the pages of the book, and it's a book that I highly recommend. It's a great series. I plan on doing a whole series on all the books. This is the second part, and this book is a book that it dares us to remember why we came here in the first place. The 10th Insight by James Redfield is a profound sequel to Redfield's best-selling spiritual novel, The Celestine Prophecy, where the first book introduced readers to the power of synchronicity and the awakening of spiritual awareness. The second installment dives deeper into the realms of soul memory, the afterlife, birth intentions, and humanity's collective evolution. This is not just a story, it's an invitation to remember. The narrative follows the same character as he searches for his friend Charlene in the Appalachian wilderness, a sacred space that serves as a metaphor for inner transformation. Along the way, he reconnects with a cast of spiritual seekers and begins uncovering the 10th insight, that our lives are guided by a deeper spiritual plan, and we choose, before birth, to incarnate with the same souls in many lifetimes to fulfill a sacred destiny. Before we are born, we choose a purpose. Remembering this purpose is a spiritual path. Death is a passage, not an end. And the book shares visions of life between lives. Humanity must evolve beyond the collective of fear paradigm. Our task is to hold the vision of connection and spiritual truth. In the 10th insight, our journey begins where the Celestine Prophecies left off, deep in the Appalachian wilderness, a place both physical and symbolic. Here, the narrator is searching for his friend, Charlene, but most importantly, he's searching for the meaning in a time of spiritual crisis. Redfield challenged us to see the signs, follow synchronicities, and reconnect with our soul group, the spirits we incarnate with over and over again, working out our shared evolution. Our soul group is like a constellation in the night sky, guiding us from lifetime to life. The book doesn't preach, it guides. If you're a seeker, an intuitive, or simply someone who's felt there's more to life than what meets the eye, this book feels like coming home. The novel blends storytelling with spiritual insight in a way that challenges the reader to remember who they truly are. Fans of the Celestine Prophecy, spiritual readers looking for narrative-based growth, and anyone exploring past lives, soul contracts, or collective awakening. The 10th insight is less about learning something new and remembering something ancient. It's a book that speaks to the soul, not just to the mind. For those walking the path of awakening, this is essential reading, a spiritual breadcrumb left in the forest of forgetting. You didn't come here to be lost. You came here to help the world remember. What if we choose our life before we are born? The 10th insight explores a radical idea that before birth, we each form a birth vision, a soul-level intention about what we wish to accomplish on earth. But once we arrive, the veil of forgetfulness descends, and we spend our lives rediscovering that vision. It's not fate, it's not spiritual choice, it's the path we're called to, and the journey is remembering that your life was no accident. Your presence is part of a larger plan to uplift the planet. The 10th insight doesn't shy away from death. In fact, it tells us death is simply a continuation, a return to source, a place where we evaluate our lives and ready ourselves for what's next. But there's a conflict. The world is steeped in fear, a fear paradigm. It keeps us from seeing our spiritual truths. Politicians, institutions, and even culture itself often strip us from our intuitive knowing. Now, how can we counter it? By remembering. By holding the vision of peace, connection, and synchronicity, and helping others to do the same. To hold the vision is to refuse to let the world harden your heart. It's practicing mindfulness, trusting synchronicity, uplifting others, and living with courage. Redfield urges us to create a critical mass of awakening souls, enough to tip humanity towards its spiritual destiny. We're not just individuals. We're part of a global energy field that we shape together. Hold the vision. Trust the process. You are part of something eternal. The book opens in the Appalachian Mountains, where our narrator is drawn once again, this time to discover new insights, but to uncover a lost one, the mysterious 10th insight. His friend Charlene has gone missing while investigating a secret military-like operation taking place deep in the forest. As the narrator searches for her, he begins to encounter visions, intuitive insights, and other spiritually awakening individuals, including Will, a character from the first book, and Feynman, a government scientist whose skepticism challenges the journey. At the core of the 10th Insight, the novel's central revelation is about the deeper spiritual design of our lives. The 10th Insight teaches us that before birth, our souls choose a mission, forming soul groups to fulfill a larger goal together. We all have birth visions, memories of our purpose that lie dormant until we awaken. The world is a spiritual crossroads between fear-based control and enlightened cooperation. Holding the vision means staying spiritually aligned, even when others fall into fear, manipulation, or material obsession. So some of the plot points: the narrator and Will navigate the wilderness and encounter clues that Charlene is being held by a secretive militaristic group trying to suppress the spread of spiritual knowledge. Encounters with soul groups. Through meditation, synchronicity, and vision states, the characters begin to remember their past lives and see each other as spiritual contracts. The afterlife experience. A powerful moment in the book occurs when the narrator temporarily leaves his body and travels to the afterlife, where souls reflect on their lives and birth intentions. This vision reveals how our fear-based actions on Earth are derailing our own progress. Feynman's redemption. The skeptical scientist is shown the vision of his own spiritual plan, which causes a turning point, proving that even the most rigid minds can awaken to spirit. The vision must be held. The novel ends with the understanding that those who are awakening must hold the vision of a spiritually conscious world, not with force, but with inner alignment, compassion, and intuition. Some of the key messages. The universe is evolving, and so is human consciousness. Our choices shape collective destiny. For every fear-based act shows our evolution, while every loving act accelerates it. We are here on purpose, with soul contracts, and remembering that this is the key to peace. Spiritually aligned individuals can change the world, not by overthrowing systems, but by refusing to feed the old fear-driven paradigms. The 10th Insight is both a spiritual thriller and a manual for spiritual awakening. Redfield wraps deep metaphysical concepts in an accessible narrative, making it ideal for readers who enjoy fiction with a message. Now, some may find it a bit idealistic or heavy-handed in the message, but for those who are spiritually curious or actively awakening, this book offers hope, structure, and empowerment. If you're asking, why am I here? Or how can I live with a spiritual purpose? This book feels like a whispered reminder from the higher self. If today's journey sparks something inside you, a memory, a knowing, then you're already tapping into the 10th Insight. So let's keep seeking together. Follow the signs, and as always, stay enchanted. Now, I wanted to talk about these books because they're some of my favorite books, And I do feel like there is something to take away from these books. You know, they're not just fictional books with characters. There's actually like a message behind it, and these books help people. They've helped me kind of understand, you know, myself and understand things beyond myself, and help me out. So I do encourage reading the books or listening to the books, the audio books. And some of the parts of my favorite parts of the book are, you know, our hero, he goes to this to the forest, and there's these scientists, and they're experimenting with this machine, and this machine is like, it knocks people out of their spiritual awakening, and so whenever they're like transitioning to like altered states of consciousness, and the bad guys turn this machine on, it knocks them back down to the physical world. And the thing about this machine is it's unstable, and it's not fully finished. It's not fully made right. Like, it's missing a component, or it's like shoddy material. And this machine, it starts to rip apart the forest. And so we have our heroes trying to not only save themselves, you know, during spiritual awakening, but also trying to save the forest. It talks about spirit animal guides. It talks about, you know, they have to follow certain spirit animals to get to where they need to be. And it also talks about soul groups, and how if we go to the afterlife, there's people that are in this world. We're all connected together. And there's people in this world that they might have left and went back to the afterlife, to the spirit world, and they're watching over us. And each time we reincarnate into a body, we take that contract. And sometimes the other person stays behind in heaven to watch over us. And sometimes they choose to reincarnate as humans in our physical bodies on Earth to help us achieve those goals. And some of the other things I learned about this book, or in this book, my favorite parts, are where our heroes end up in what they call like a purgatory, where it's all this negative stuff is happening, all this bad stuff is happening over and over again on repeat. And the hero has to break free from that. He has to figure out a way to overcome the negative impacts of what's going on around him, the bad things happening over and over on repeat. And he has to get past that and try to bring his way back out of that purgatory. And I feel like maybe that's what purgatory is, like hell. Maybe that's what hell is just repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again, and not really realizing you're caught in a trap. And maybe that's what hell is, or sometimes we call it purgatory. Maybe that's what it is. It's just a frequency where you're stuck in a bad space, and we have to figure out ways to get over that. One of the key parts is holding the vision, which is, you know, holding on to the good things, remembering the good things, thinking about the positive things all the time, and not so much focusing on the bad things. Because, you know, when we think about things, you know, when things happen to us and we think, oh, that was a bad thing that happened to me, you know, look through the silver lining. Maybe it was supposed to happen that way for a reason. Maybe there's some other unseen force or unseen thing that's going to happen that can help you later on, where you could think, okay, maybe the thing that happened to me that I thought was bad was not so bad after all, and now I'm on the right path. So it's a book that talks about these many things. It talks about spirituality. It talks about afterlife, what happens to us when we die. It talks about having these visions, like when your life flashes before your eyes. So they say when you die, your life flashes before your eyes. And in the book, it talks about how it shows people that died, and they appear before like a council of people, and they see all the mistakes they made in their life, and, you know, a review of their life, and that helps them decide what they want to do next. If they want to reincarnate into another body or stay in the spirit world and help their friends on their paths. And I feel like it's all connected. I feel like we're all kind of connected in that way. And how people that come and go in and out of your lives is for a reason. There's reasons why. And it's important to talk about and think about why when people come in and out of your life, at what timing and why. What's the message? What's so important about that? We learned from the first book that you meet everyone for a reason. You have to teach someone something and they have to something to teach you. And so when we think about like that and how it's all connected, it's interesting to go back through your life and think about how people have come and gone into your life at exactly the right moment and appreciate that and try to understand that and try to pick it apart, break it down. Anyways, the book is this highly recommended book. I do recommend you read the first book, Celestine Prophecies by James Redfield. This is the second book called The 10th Insight. There's also guided meditations that you can listen to help you on your journeys. I recommend doing those after you read the books. But if you can't get the book or listen to the audiobook, then you can get it from the library. But I do recommend at least reading the first book. It's really good. So thank you guys for listening. This Celestine Prophecies Book 2 book review. And I want to thank you guys for listening. Thank you for everyone listening on... This is Matt's Owl, the Temple of the Owl, signing off. Releasing the spirit of the owl. And until next time. Thank you guys. Thank you for listening on KUAP, Digital Broadcasting, the Troubled Minds Radio Network. Blessed be.
For many centuries, witchcraft has been considered evil, associated with the devil and all things dark. Let's break these stereotypes with your host, Matt Sal, at the Temple of the Owl. Let's talk about magic, of the old ways, explore the many roles of the witch, learn the tools of the craft, the history of the science behind this ancient, earth-based religion. Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting. For centuries, witchcraft has been considered evil and associated with the devil. Stories of provocative wickedness and the evil creator of poison Snow White and Owl have portrayed witches as antagonistic monsters. Marry me. My name is Matt Sal. And with the spirit of the owl, messenger of wisdom, I want to break those stereotypes and shed some light on the positive side of the craft. And shed some light, and with the spirit of